Innuendo, Book 5 of the Todd Mills Mystery Series. Author R.D. Zimmerman. Publisher Scribble Pub Press, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Narrator Eric Aust. Chapter 15. There was no doubt in her mind that it was Andy, that her firstborn was dead and gone. Martha Lyman felt it in her heart, felt the pain digging so deep that she could barely move. But still, she had to do this. She had to go into that next room and identify her baby. The authorities here in Minneapolis already said they had positive identification, someone who had known Andy, but she wanted to make sure, absolutely sure. And yes, she wanted to see him, Andy, her oldest child, just one more time. She wanted to look at him, touch him, kiss him, and cradle her beautiful boy in her arms. Just once again. Oh, God, she thought as she sat on a short vinyl couch in some basement room of the Hennepin County Medical Center complex. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Her family wasn't supposed to be torn apart, and none of her children was supposed to die before her. Nothing whatsoever had prepared her for this kind of pain, this unimaginable horror. Even though she'd never said it, she'd always thought John would die first, that he'd keep gaining weight, and that one day, perhaps, during harvest season, his heart would give out and he'd peacefully collapse in the fields or in the barn. Then Andy, who would have a wonderful wife and lots of kids, would take over the farm. And when it was her time, she was supposed to fade away, watching lots of grandkids play in the yard and witnessing the miraculous cycle start all over again. That was how it was supposed to happen, how she had envisioned the closure of her life until that last year. Instead, she stared downward, her eyes wide and red, and saw nothing particularly, not the bland linoleum floor with its ripples of beige running through it. Her blonde hair hung limply, and her blue dress lay wrinkled, particularly after the long drive here. How had she done it? How had she gotten to the cities all by herself? She wasn't really sure. Everything had been such a fog since the police had phoned last night. But somehow this morning she'd gotten in the car and driven 100 miles, and now she sat alone in the waiting room of the Minneapolis morgue. Yes, alone, while one part of her was collapsing under the weight of her grief. Another part was seething with anger. "I'm sorry, Martha," her husband John had said to her early this morning. "I just can't." You can't what?" "I can't do it. I can't go with you." "What are you saying?" "I don't want to look at that body." "What? What in God's name are you saying?" she had begged through her tears as she stood at the kitchen counter. "You can't be serious." "I swore that night that I never wanted to see him again, and I meant it." But he's your boy. Your own flesh and blood." "No. My boy, Andy, was someone else. Someone who died that night. Someone who's long gone. Besides, Lord knows I've got work to do around here." Everything came to an immediate rush of a boil. Her grief, her frustration, her fury. And Martha had taken 2 steps across the kitchen floor, brought back her right hand, and slapped John as hard as she could. He took it without a flinch, standing there, his eyes shrinking, viper-like, his face flushing red. And then Martha had turned away, charging through the living room, where her 2 daughters sat huddled in tears and confusion. She changed into the blue dress, made a feeble attempt at brushing her hair, then grabbed her purse and stormed out the kitchen door. Over the past months, she tried to forgive her husband for that night, when he dragged Andy into the barn and threatened him so horribly. She told herself that yes, what her boy had been doing was disgusting and ungodly, and that her husband had been justified in losing his temper. But how in the name of the Lord could she forgive him this for rejecting their boy even in death? It was too much, far, far too much, this double-edged sword of grief. Here she'd lost her boy, and now she felt as if she were clearly seeing the distance and difference between John and her for the first time, and hating him. Was he really so repulsive a human being? "Mrs. Lyman." She looked up, saw a man with silvery hair and a kind face. He said, "I'm Sergeant Neil Foster. I'm the one who called you last night." "Thank you for coming." Her voice barely audible, she replied, "Oh, yes. As I said on the phone, someone who knew your son has already provided positive identification. Are you sure you want to do this?" Biting her lips, she nodded. "Okay, then. It's this way. She pushed herself to her feet, then felt him by her side as they walked toward a door, which he held open for her. Suddenly her heart started pounding, both horrified and fearful of what she was soon to see. Andy, really dead. The life truly drained from him. Suddenly she wanted nothing more than to run, to turn and charge away, but she couldn't, not by any means. As if by instinct, Martha was drawn forward, her body operating on its own, her legs taking one step after another. She was aware of him, the policeman, close by her side. She felt his hand on her elbow as they left the waiting room and crossed a wide hall. She heard him mumble something, and then, through these doors, she saw two wide stainless steel doors, one of which he pushed open. Immediately she breathed it in. The strangest odors, at once medicinal yet also repulsively foul. And immediately she recognized it, even though she'd never sensed anything like it before. The smell of death. Suddenly she found it difficult to breathe. Suddenly the strength ebbed from her legs. Dear God, could she really truly go through with this? Was she going to make it? Straight in front of her was a woman in a clean white jacket, a woman who smiled but didn't smile, and who said something else. Martha glanced to her left, saw a wall of stainless steel with row after row of small square doors, some 15 doors long and 4 high. Yes, she knew what that was, a cold beehive of the dead. With a gentle nudge on her arm, the policeman drew her to a stop, and there it was, a long bed. A gurney, to be exact, with a sheet-covered figure, reposed like a white shadow. Her eyes ran up and down the outline of a body. Realized the head was up there, the feet down at the other end. Andy? Oh, please, sweetheart, don't let it be you. I love you. You know I do. You know I never stopped. Please let this all be a mistake. Please come back. I've missed you. I really have. And then she felt Foster's grip tighten on her arm. He said, "Okay," as neatly as if she were turning down a bed in the finest of hotels. The woman in the white doctor's coat pulled down the crisp sheet. First to emerge was the gorgeous hair, which, in his childhood, had been as white as cotton, but was now, in his adolescence, the rich color of straw. Then came the forehead. John's forehead, wide and proud, with a slight scar right in the middle from when he'd fallen out of the hayloft. Next, his eyebrows, flowing and golden, and then his eyes, once as blue as the sky, but now closed and forever dark. "Oh, God!" she sobbed as the world fell away. A Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold: to offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides, and in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.